Okay, so now here we go. Team number 13. We just did Rich at 12. So team number 13. Coming up in the rear, we got Stefan. Um, so I guess we'll get into it and we'll go over. We went through draft strategy, but I guess we'll go a little bit more into that in this video. Starting things off, player nomination number 4. We take Patrick Mahomes at 16. That's a lot for a QB. This next closest was me taking Josh Allen at $11, which I deeply did not want to do, but hey, we did it. So, is Mahomes elite? Yeah, he's top 5 in attempts, pass yards, passing TDs, yards per attempt. He's also 10th in rushing. He doesn't rush often, but he does rush occasionally. They overhauled the O-line in Kansas City. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first-round pick at running back 2 years ago. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, great players. McCall Hardman, another high pick. Sorry, I'm just keep fixing my hair. I'm just going to keep playing around with it. He's a former league and Super Bowl MVP. Last year he was in the Super Bowl. So many nice things to say. Is this a year he gets to 5,000 yards in a season? I don't know. I think he'll get close. Will he be elite? Obviously. 36 touchdowns maybe. So, is he fantastic? Yeah. Is he great? Yeah. Paying $16, is that what he's worth? Probably. Yeah. Maybe even a little more. So, do I hate it? No. Would I do it? No. Next we go Calvin Ridley, 45. Like Calvin, Julio's gone. When Julio has been gone previously, he is essentially a top 5 receiver. He'll get a lot of target share. Kyle Pitts is there now. Julio is gone, but he is the top option. We don't exactly. We think Arthur Smith, so the former O coordinator of the Titans, who's now the coach of the Falcons, will be more run heavy, and that can cut into his volume. But I still think he's a fringe possible top 5 receiver. Maybe he's definitely top 10. I think he'll get around what he got last year, so 95 receptions, 1,350 yards, maybe 8 touchdowns. So, very, very good receiver. Top 5-ish range, maybe just outside. Still, elite receiver, okay. We paid a lot for him, so 45 for an elite receiver. I mean, he's just a tad under what DK Metcalf went for, a little bit more than Allen Robinson, a little more than DeAndre Hopkins even. But, the upside, there is upside there with no Julio, okay? Then we're getting a little wacky. We get Joe Mixon. I've been waiting to talk about Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, the player, gets injured a lot. Last year, he was injured so much he only played 6 games. He was busy the 6 games he played because he basically controlled the whole backfield, and now with Giovanni Bernard, I can't imagine that doesn't continue. He handled almost all of the backfield touches, whether they be pass catching, receiving, or blocking. And in 2019, he was like the number 13 running back, and he came on pretty strong towards the end. He's going to get a huge target share. I believe Joe Burrow is talented. I mean, heck, Hannah's starting him to start the fantasy season. The O-line's bad. Giants O-line's worse. Steelers O-line might be worse. Cincinnati's not all that far off. I know they got Riley Ralph as the right tackle. I know they took a guard in the draft, but it's not. Why do we take Penny? Why do we take Shamar Chase and pass Penei Sewell in the first round? Why do you do that? Like, that's not good roster building. T. Higgins and I'm not even going to get into it. The point is, the O-line's not very good, but Joe Mixon gets so much volume, and he is very, very talented as a running back, don't get me wrong. He's probably more talented than Austin Eckler, but less talented than Alvin Kamara, but he's in a worse situation than both. But he's a rock-solid number 2 running back with number 1 running back upside. He's possibly out of the top 10 running backs just because we don't know if we can trust him, but we can see it. I can see 1,000 yards and then another 400 yards receiving. So I could see like 10 touchdowns, which would make him borderline sneak into the top 10 running backs, but be outside the top 5. So, but still, that's really, really good. Like, he's roughly, what? Like, Antonio Gibson kind of range, I guess you could say. He's a better bet than, like, Saquon, just because I don't trust if Saquon can actually stay healthy. But at the same time, we're paying exactly his sticker price. We're paying $62 for him. We're not going cheap at all. All right, so we got our quarterback. We got our stud number 1 receiver. We got who's gonna be our number 1 running back. What else? What else we doing? And then we keep spending that money, and I don't know about that. All right, Justin Jefferson. Now, to be fair, I really like Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson was excellent last year. Credit to Charlie for picking him up in the draft. He was my rookie of the year, personally. He is now a top 10 receiver. He replaced Stephon Diggs, and Diggs looks like a top 5 receiver, but Jefferson was excellent in Minnesota. He is the reason why I'm low on Adam Thielen, because I think this is the Justin Jefferson show now. I would be building the offense around him and not Dalvin Cook, but that's me. The point is, the kid had 1,400 yards, all right? 1,400 yards as a rookie. That's insane. I don't think he'll get quite that much. I think the offense is teetering more towards him, but I think, obviously they still want to run Cook into the ground. But I'm thinking like 1,200, 1,300 yards, getting those 8 to 10 touchdowns. He might not be quite as good as he was last year with his massive, 28% target share, so, roughly 8 to 9 catches a game. But he's still really, really good, and the offense, barring Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen both being unvaccinated, staying healthy, barring that, Jefferson's going to be in for a big year. I like him a lot. We paid a lot. We didn't pay as much as I thought. We paid a little less than what Sari paid for McLaurin, which is actually kind of funny. I am higher on McLaurin, but Jefferson's the safer bet. So I will give you credit for that. I guess the only other team I can really compare to is maybe Patrick. You spent a little less than what Patrick spent on Hopkins, but I think Hopkins is safer than both of those players just because he's so consistent. So, yeah, it's a weird range for me. I think, obviously, Tyreek Hill's still the number 1 who's on Rich's team. But if you're not noticing a theme by now, I didn't really like any of the teams who spent a lot of money on elite receivers. So Sarah, Rich. I guess the team I'm highest on is possibly Patrick. And that's mostly because Patrick did a good job on the back end. These other teams, because you went so high so early, you got no depth. So you got your number 2 receiver, I guess, and he's very good. He's good enough to be a number 1 receiver on literally any team in the league. But because of that, our number 1 running back is David Johnson. David Johnson hasn't been a top 10 running back in, 5 years? 2016? Yeah. 2016. I mean, he was better than I would thought he would be last year, but that's because my expectations were so low. I don't think, what was it? He only played 11 games, and in like a third of those games, he was roughly like a top 15 running back. So, hey, that's a good 4 or 5 games just based on volume. But this year's much different. This year we got Philip Lindsay and Mark Ingram and we brought in Rex Burkhead, and Tyrod Taylor's the quarterback, and we brought in a new offensive coordinator, and we want to run the ball more. And I believe if what the depth chart says is true, and what the coaching staff says is true, and what the beat writers say is true, it's looking more and more like, A, this is a 4-player running back committee, which sounds terrible for fantasy, and B, in that 4-player running back committee, David Johnson is the pass-catching back and third on the depth chart. So you spent $10 on a number 3 running back in a 4-player committee, and you spent $10 on the player who's the most injury-prone among those 4 running backs. Needless to say, I don't believe this is a good idea. I think you are better off putting that money in your pocket and walking away. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to get too much into it, but he's just injured all the time. So, yeah. Next, we got Deontay Johnson. I like Deontay Johnson. I think he had his quote-unquote breakout season last year. He was very good for Hannah. The Steelers had one of the best passing offenses the first half of the season. He got 144 targets, so I think he was like, what? In his 12, he only played 12 regular season games, and he was the number 4 fantasy receiver in those 12 games. People don't know that. I know that. I'm a Steelers fan. So, he was excellent when he played, and he was healthy. Will he be healthy the whole time? I don't know. Honestly, he led the league in drops. I think he had 12 last year, so that's like a drop a game. So he led the league in drops, but in a pass-first offense with heavy passing volume, not Chase Claypool, who's the red zone target, not Juju Smith-Schuster, who is the, I guess you'd say, slot receiver mayhem. Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson is the number 1 receiver in Pittsburgh. People don't know that. People overlook it. People don't know about it because the other two tend to like Smith-Schuster gets tons and tons of catches. He leads the team in receptions, and Claypool gets the red zone work, so Claypool leads the team in touchdowns. But the actual real number 1 receiver who leads the league, leads the team in yards, who gets medium amount of red zone work, who's probably the most talented, is Deontay Johnson. So, if Big Ben has a bounce-back season, yeah, I'd like to have Deontay Johnson. Would he be the best receiver on my team? Yes, he would. Charlie has Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool. Would I take Deontay Johnson over both? I would. I think he gets his 1,000 yards. I think he gets his 6 receptions. I think there's possibility for more. The only thing is, obviously, despite this team being pass-first, we're bringing in Najee Harris. The O-line's still not very good. Big Ben is still the quarterback. So they kind of, all 3 of the receivers and James Washington, so the 4th receiver, play into the volume for each of them. But still, Deontay Johnson is a very good receiver. And I like him. I take him over the other guys. I don't think $14 on Deontay Johnson's bad. But now we've capped ourselves out. And then we did, this is kind of like a worse team than Charlie. So here we go. So then we did $5 on Kyler Murray. I've talked up Kyler Murray quite a bit in a few videos. Do I think Kyler Murray is a steal at $5? Yes. Do I think he's worth it? Yes. Was he the number 3 fantasy quarterback last year? Yes. You got him at a better price than I got Josh Allen. But is Tyler Murray good on your team? No. Why? Well, unless Patrick Mahomes gets COVID, and I'm not saying he gets COVID and misses like a week or 2 or 3. Unless Patrick Mahomes gets COVID and misses like 8 games, it's not worth having Kyler Murray on your team. Why? Well, the answer is simple. The utility of basically having a backup quarterback nailed to your bench every week for 17 weeks is bad. That's bad value. You have bye weeks for all the other positions that you got to work with. Defense, offense, you got to be constantly shifting your bench. And you just gave up that spot for a backup quarterback. Now, could you trade him? Yeah, you could. Could you get value for him? Probably. In our league, there are teams starting much worse quarterbacks. Hannah's starting Joe Burrow, and she's got 2 as a backup. Rich is starting. Matt Ryan got Baker Mayfield as a backup. Patrick's starting Ben Roethlisberger. Would I say Kyler Murray is better than all of them? Absolutely, I would. Would I give you a starting running back for him? Absolutely not. I would not. Why would I do that? Well, if Justin Herbert is the breakout candidate quarterback that I can find off free agency, if Josh Allen is the breakout quarterback I can find on free agency the year before that, or I guess you could say Lamar Jackson the year before that even, if Patrick Mahomes can get drafted in the 12th round by Brian, quarterbacks you can find, and you can find them on the cheap. So even if Kyler Murray is cheap, you having a price that is not cheap to trade for him is not ideal. I traded Le'Veon Bell for Aaron Rodgers last year, and Aaron Rodgers' MVP season. Le'Veon Bell was okay, then he got cut by the Jets after Hannah made the trade, and then he was on the Chiefs, and then he was a backup on the Chiefs. Not great, but if you did not want to keep a quarterback, you got to make that trade. Am I going to trade you a starting running back for a quarterback? No. Why? Running backs are gold. I can't stress this enough. If you don't have enough running backs, your team's not going anywhere. I guess you could say the outlier was last year with Charlie making the playoffs. If you want to roll that dice and you want to make that playoffs 1 in 8 years and you want to run that backup quarterback, very few running backs, everyone stays magically healthy and have that second half swoon, and I have the lowest scored against me team, you want to run that, that's fine. Obviously, it can work once in a blue moon, which is once in 8 years. But if you want to consistently push, then this is not what you do. We do not take backup quarterbacks. Backup quarterbacks offer us nothing. So, is Kyler Murray a better quarterback than some players on other teams? Yeah, he is. Would I trade anything of value for him currently? I wouldn't. I have Josh Allen. Could somebody? Possibly, yeah, I guess. But every week he's on your bench, there's another week he's worth less. So, make of that what you will, but you bid on a second backup quarterback who's good, but will be nailed to your bench for the time being. After that, we took Tyler Boyd. I like Boyd. He looked like a bust his first 2 years in the NFL, but suddenly he was a top 20 player in 2018-2019, and he's become one of the better slot receivers in the NFL, funny enough. In the first half of last year, he was actually the number 9 fantasy receiver. People don't remember that. I remember that. I kept track of that because that's when Joe Burrow was healthy. And that's why I'm kind of high on, Jamar Chase. Because, Joe Burrow's currently healthy. And Joe Burrow's really good. If the Bengals can keep him upright. I don't know about that, but, hope, I guess. So, Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, obviously, not going to get as much volume because now Jamar Chase comes in there. But maybe he'll be a little bit more fantasy-friendly if Joe Burrow somehow survives the season behind that horrid O-line. He did not find the end zone much last year, but I think he's a good number 3-ish, flex-ish receiver. I could see like 900 yards, maybe a little under 1,000, and like 5 or 6 touchdowns. So he's kind of like, he's like a good number 3-ish receiver, flex kind of receiver. And getting that for a very cheap price of $3, it's good on you. That's good. That's a good pick. But I guess that makes our lineup now because, we're starting Ridley and Jefferson and Johnson and Boyd and Mixon and Mahomes. Murray's our backup, and then we're stuck with David Johnson. After that, we can get into it like you took Henry Ruggs. Maybe Ruggs will be better because maybe Derek Carr can actually get him the ball. Personally, I think he's in the wrong place. Henry Ruggs would be incredible in the Chiefs offense or the Packers offense, or really anyone with a quarterback who throws an accurate deep ball. That is not Derek Carr. John Gruden doesn't call those type of plays. He had 26 receptions as the first wide receiver drafted last year. That is bad. That's really, like, if you're going to spend high draft capital on someone and they're not even going to break 30 receptions, that's really, really awful. So he got, 4 targets a game and, 2 catches? That's not good enough. Will he possibly get a breakout? I mean, yeah, just simply based off the fact that he can't get much worse. He wasn't good enough to be on my bench. In fact, last year, if you told me what he did last year and you asked me if I would want him on my team this year when I have no receivers, I would not even want him on my team because he was so bad. So, out of just purely positive regression, he will be better. He might even double what he did last year. But that's still, last year he had 26 catches, so all I'm saying is, 52, and maybe 800 yards. So maybe he'll get, 4 touchdowns. So I literally just doubled everything, and he's still a not very good, probably on my bench, maybe occasionally a flex in a bye week type of player. And that's if he literally doubles his stats from last year. And it's not through any fault of his own, to be honest with you. He's tremendously, tremendously talented player. I understood why he was drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson. The issue is he's in the wrong offense with the wrong coach, with the wrong coordinator, with the wrong quarterback. Everything about his situation tells me that he does not fit there. So it's just, all right, I guess he's on your squad now. You took Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell's super fast. He was drafted in 2019. He runs a 4.31. He's the number 2 receiver with T.Y. Hilton currently out. Again, don't know why Ryan is trotting out backup defensive ends and cornerbacks and has T.Y. Hilton on IR. Just lots and lots of things about Ryan's bench are bad. But, hey, Paris Campbell on your bench. Maybe he can possibly break out. That being said, he has played literally 9 out of 32 possible games in 2 years. So, basically 4.5 games out of 32 the last couple years. If he can purely out of coincidence stay healthy, he will contribute. But again, we're not talking a whole lot. Maybe 50 catches and 700 yards, so even less than Ruggs, and 4 touchdowns. So at that point, he's basically free agent fodder. He's not even worth keeping on my team, especially because Carson Wentz was so terrible last year. He was the only quarterback who was starting for games that was worse than Carson Wentz was Dwayne Haskins. That's how bad Carson Wentz was. As much as fun as I make of Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz was worse than him last year. Carson Wentz was awful. So, do I think purely out of regression, Carson Wentz will be better this year? I mean, yeah, the O-line's better for him, and just purely out of just stupid regression, he ought to be better. How much better? I couldn't tell you, but he can't be as bad as he was last year. It's near impossible. I mean, it was really, really bad. Really, really bad. So, all of that's to say, I guess Paris Campbell has breakout potential, but the breakout potential is to be instead of being literally one of the worst players available on free agency, he has the potential to be on my team for a couple weeks on my bench in case T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman get hurt and something happens to Jonathan Taylor and Carson Wentz suddenly becomes an MVP candidate. That's a lot of things that got to go right, but hey, maybe there's a chance. There's a 10% chance that all goes right. Would I bet on it? No. Would I spend any capital on it? No. Would I keep him on my team? No. So, yeah. He took Randall Cobb later at 227. I like Cobb. He had some fine seasons with Green Bay. It's been a while since he's been with Aaron Rodgers. He led the league in touchdowns one year with Rodgers, so that was a long time ago. But as his slot receiver, maybe he has some utility. He's 31 now, so I don't think he's getting any younger. So it's tough for me to see him getting a breakout. It's tough for me to see him like really doing much, even in Green Bay. Again, we're talking like a 50 cat, like Ruggs and Campbell and Cobb are kind of like the same. I mean, Campbell's super fast. Ruggs is super fast. Ruggs is super duper fast. And Cobb is reliable. And Cobb's in the best situation of them, but he's also the oldest and least trustable. So I think, again, another 50 reception kind of guy. This one, we're going even less. So we started at 800 with Ruggs, 800 yards. Then we went 700 with Campbell if he somehow magically stays healthy. Now we're going 600 with Cobb and maybe like 3 or 2 touchdowns. So again, not worth keeping on my team. We took Rex Burkhead for reasons unknown. I'm not sure how much utility Burkhead has. I guess you could say he's on the Texans, and the Texans are allegedly using a 4-man by committee. But I think Burkhead's going to average like 3 or 4 touches a game if everybody else is healthy. He's not even worth being on your roster. I mean, Rex Burkhead had some utility in those years with New England because injuries happened and he moved his way up to being like the number 2 or the number 1 running back at times. Like James White would get hurt, or LeGarrette Blount would be hurt, or Sonny Michel would be hurt, what have you. That's when Rex Burkhead would get value. Rex Burkhead's on a worse team with the worst, basically everything but offensive line, and maybe that's like average. And he's like the special teams running back. He has no value. Tim Patrick, I mean, he's on a run-first offense behind Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, the tight end, and Courtland Sutton's back, who I'm high on. So he's like the number 4 receiver on the Broncos. So the point is, the same thing with Rich, the same thing with Sarah, your team's like a worse version of Charlie's. I guess just kind of like Charlie, we drafted a bunch of receivers, but just like Rich and Sarah, we got no depth. There's just no depth. So, I mean, could this team, when it's healthy and everyone's clicking, be good? I guess, but I would literally dump the entire bench. Just like Sarah's team, I would literally dump the entire bench. Just like Rich's team, I would literally dump the entire bench. There's no upside. I guess we could say maybe there's some upside with Ruggs. I'll give you that. But, I mean, there's no upside here. I mean, you even kept Malcolm Butler. You drafted Malcolm Butler, and then you have him currently on your IR. The man retired. He's literally in Mexico right now on vacation with his wife and kids. He retired, and you kept him. You put him on your IR like he's going to come back from some injury, and he's not. He literally retired. He is gone. He left. So stuff like that just like boggles my mind. So, I mean, I guess he picked up Antoine Winfield Jr. to be the starting safety, but you're running double safety this year. No, you're not running double safety. You're running, like, backup linebacker on the Cowboys, Jalen Smith. I don't know what that is. I like your receivers, Jefferson, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley. I like them. Your running backs are horrid. They're even worse than Charlie's because Rex Burkhead has no value, and David Johnson's a number 3 running back. So, like, really, you literally have, like, 1 running back. So that by itself will impede you from winning games. Mahomes and Murray are a good tandem at quarterback, I guess. And you got them for relatively around, like, you got Murray on the cheap and Mahomes for a little under probably what he's worth. But like Charlie's team is just like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Oh, lucky me, I get to eat up a bench slot for 17 weeks on my team, and I will manage that and get into the playoffs once every 8 years. Cool, I guess. So, again, team building. What do we want? If you don't even got to do the high end running back thing. If you want to just be like, okay, I'm going to go like RB0, Dylan. I'm going to like draft no star running backs. I'm going to go super wide receiver. And you wanted to sell me on that. Okay. I mean, I kind of did that last year. I got Hopkins and Allen Robinson and Julio Jones. But let's say you want to do D-Hop and Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf, right? And let's say quarterbacks are cheap, so we get like a $3 Matthew Stafford, right? And we spent a lot of money on those receivers, so we need some like budget running backs. So we stole Gus Edwards and Damian Harris, and we took, I don't know, who's the flex? We took like an up-and-coming player for cheap for flex that we thought was a good deal. So let's, who was someone that was a good deal? Will Fuller. So we took Will Fuller. He's suspended. And then we later took like Deebo Samuel, right? Let's say we built the team out like that, right? If that was true, if we did all of that, and that was the lineup, and we spent all that money on the back end where it really matters, when it's like pick 150 to 252, and we got to spend dollar players, I'm hitting running back hard. I'm going for like the Ronald Joneses. I'm going for like the Phillip Lindsays. I'm going for the Jamal Williams, as much as I do not like Jamal Williams. I'm going for the Tevin Colemans. I'm going for like the James Connors. I'm like hitting that really hard in the hope that I somehow, some way find a Phillip Lindsay, James Robinson type of guy. Because if I can do that, maybe this can work. Maybe by going so heavy at wide receiver and lucking into like that one breakout running back that I got on the cheap, this can maybe work. What this is, like what you and Sarah and Rich and Charlie did, this will not work. Why? Because you didn't even take those kind of budget running backs. So there's no possibility of you finding Phillip Lindsay or Aaron Jones or James Robinson on the cheap, because you didn't even draft them. They're not even on your bench. They're not there. So you're never going to find them because they're not there. They're not on your team. So that's what you got to do if you're going to do that. I don't want to be like, sometimes teams like people like myself want to do lots of research. People like Mac, they don't want all that information. They want to just kind of like go through it and just kind of like experience it, and they don't want to get bogged down. And that's okay. But you got to have a foundation of information to build off of. You got to have some sort of plan. Like, I want to get these receivers. I want to get these running backs. I have a general price that I got on this tier of player that I like, and this is what I want to go on. So, and obviously things can go wrong. Mac was trying to upbid David Montgomery, and he ended up with him. Andre was trying to upbid Adam Thielen, and he ended up with him. I was trying to upbid Josh Allen, and I ended up with him. It happens. You make mistakes. It's okay. Ryan got stuck with Saquon Barkley auto-drafting, and obviously he's not pleased with it, and that sucks for him. But you know what? He didn't get down about it. The depth isn't great, but he's got a good team, and he's drafted players that do have some upside on the back end, and that's really what you got to do. You got if you got no budget, if you don't pay attention in the back end, it's going to bite you in the butt, because you're just going to get a bunch of players you don't know anything about who offer you basically nothing. And if you're going to do this again, spend all that money up front, then you really are going to have to like do some research to figure out like super breakout-y guys on the back end that like I can sneak in for $1 in order to find like, I don't know, what is it? To find like Robbie's like Tony Jones Jr. who he took for $1, or like Charlie taking like Tyson Williams for like $1, or Terrence Marshall for $1. That's the kind of picks like you're gonna have to like do. in order for it to work. And I don't know. I guess it's just a symptom of your drafting, but this was rough. Don't like the team. I would highly, highly, highly recommend you trade Kyler Murray ASAP to someone who could use a running back or use a quarterback, because it's very, very likely Rex Burkhead does nothing and David Johnson either gets hurt or does nothing. And if both those things become true, which it's pretty likely going to happen, you got no second running back because you didn't draft any of them. They don't exist on your team. So, yeah. I don't really, like, of course you guys are going to get, like, good deals on wide receivers, Charlie. Because there's so many of them. Just spend the money on a running back, man. Come on. Anyway, Stefan, please trade Kyler Murray, please. Like, you gotta make the playoffs, man. That's the goal. It's not to keep spinning our wheels and doing bad things. Make the playoffs.